The dust swirled across the barren Wyoming landscape like a sorrowful dance as Olivia Wilson stood on the porch of her modest homestead, her hand resting protectively over her flat belly, a painful reminder of what the doctor in Cheyenne had told her 3 years ago. "You'll never bear children, Miss Wilson. Best accept it and find other purposes for your life." The year was 1876, and a woman without the prospect of motherhood might as well have been branded barren in more ways than one. Olivia tucked a strand of auburn hair behind her ear and squinted toward the horizon. The setting sun painted the distant mountains in hues of purple and gold, a beauty that usually brought her comfort. Not today. Today marked 5 years since she'd traveled west on the promise of land and independence, fleeing the suffocating pity of her family back in Boston after her fiancé had broken their engagement upon learning of her condition. The sound of hoofbeats pulled her from her melancholy. A rider approached, tall in the saddle, his silhouette cutting a commanding figure against the darkening sky. Instinctively, Olivia reached for the shotgun propped against the door frame. Living alone had taught her caution. "Hello, the house," a deep voice called out. "Mean no harm, madam." The rider came into clearer view, a broad-shouldered man with a weathered face beneath a dust-covered Stetson. He reined his horse to a stop a respectful distance from her porch. "State your business," Olivia called back, her finger resting near the trigger. He removed his hat, revealing thick chestnut hair streaked with sun-bleached strands. "Name's Caleb Morgan, madam. I've been riding fence for the Diamond B spread north of here." Spotted smoke from what looked like a chimney fire about 2 miles west. "Thought you ought to know, if this is your property." Olivia's grip on the shotgun relaxed slightly. "The Phillips place. They're away visiting kin in Laramie." "Then someone's in their home who shouldn't be," Caleb said grimly. "Saw 3 horses tied outside." Olivia's mind raced. The Phillips family, Mary, John, and their 2 young children had been kind neighbors, helping her when winter storms had nearly buried her small cabin. "We should alert the sheriff," she said. "White River's a good half-day's ride from here," Caleb replied. "By the time we fetch him, those men could be long gone with whatever they're after." He paused, studying her face. "I'm happy to ride over there myself, but thought you might know if they've kin visiting or some such." Olivia shook her head firmly. "They don't, and I won't sit idle while someone terrorizes decent folk." She grabbed her coat from the hook by the door. "I'm coming with you." A hint of admiration flickered across Caleb's face. "Most women would stay behind closed doors, Mississippi." "Wilson, Olivia Wilson." "And I'm not most women, Mr. Morgan." They approached the Phillips homestead with caution, leaving their horses tethered in a grove of cottonwoods a quarter-mile back. The flicker of firelight through the windows confirmed someone was indeed inside. As they crept closer, raucous laughter spilled from the open windows. "Looks like they're celebrating their find," Caleb whispered. "John Phillips keeps a small lockbox beneath the floorboards in the pantry. Town folks know he saved for years to buy more cattle come spring." Olivia's jaw tightened. "We can't let them take it." "I agree, but we're outnumbered. I've got my colt, but 3 against 2 isn't favorable odds." Olivia thought quickly. "We don't need to fight them. Just scare them enough to leave without the money." She explained her plan, watching Caleb's expression shift from skepticism to reluctant agreement. Minutes later, Olivia stood at the front of the house, shotgun in hand, while Caleb positioned himself at the rear exit. She took a deep breath and fired a shot into the air. "This is Sheriff Williams," she shouted in her deepest voice. "We have the house surrounded. Come out with your hands visible." Chaos erupted inside, chairs scraping, glass breaking, men cursing. Olivia fired another warning shot just as the front door burst open. A bearded man stumbled out, looking wildly in all directions. When he spotted Olivia, his momentary confusion gave way to anger. "It's just a woman," he bellowed to his companions. He reached for his holstered pistol. Caleb's voice rang out from the darkness. "And me. Drop your weapon or die where you stand." The man hesitated, his hand hovering near his gun. "My deputy has a clear shot at your back," Olivia added, praying her voice wouldn't betray her fear. "And I assure you, this shotgun will leave a hole big enough to ride a horse through." For a tense moment, no one moved. Then a shout came from inside. "Riders coming. At least 4 of them." It was a fortuitous coincidence, likely a patrol from the nearest ranch investigating the gunshots. The bearded man cursed, dropped his hand, and signaled to his companions. They bolted for their horses, empty-handed in their haste. Olivia's knees nearly buckled with relief as she watched them flee. Caleb appeared beside her, his hand steady on her arm. "That was either the bravest or most foolish thing I've ever seen," he said, a mixture of admiration and disbelief in his voice. Olivia managed a shaky smile. Perhaps both. The approaching riders turned out to be neighboring ranchers rather than outlaws. After explaining the situation and ensuring the Phillips home was secure, Caleb insisted on escorting Olivia back to her homestead. "You handled yourself well tonight," he said as they rode side by side under a canopy of stars. "Most men I know would have shown less courage." "Necessity breeds courage, Mr. Morgan. When you live alone, you learn to be your own protector." "Caleb," he corrected gently. "After facing down outlaws together, I think we've earned first-name basis." They reached her cabin just as dawn began to break over the eastern plains. Olivia dismounted, suddenly aware of her disheveled appearance, hair escaping its pins, dirt smudging her cheeks. "Thank you for alerting me about the Phillips place," she said formally, trying to regain some semblance of propriety. Caleb's eyes crinkled at the corners when he smiled. "I'd say it's I who should be thanking you, Olivia. Your quick thinking saved both our hides." He hesitated. "I'd be honored if you'd allow me to call on you properly sometime. Perhaps Sunday, after church services?" Olivia hesitated. She'd built walls around her heart since the doctor's devastating news, knowing few men would want a wife who couldn't give them children. But something about Caleb Morgan's steady gaze made her nod despite herself. "I'd like that," she replied softly. True to his word, Caleb appeared at church that Sunday, freshly shaved and wearing a clean shirt that strained slightly across his broad shoulders. Olivia felt the curious glances from the townspeople as he tipped his hat to her after the service, offering his arm to escort her to the small restaurant nearby. Over a simple meal of beef stew and cornbread, they exchanged stories. Caleb had come west after the war between the states, trying to outrun memories of battles that still haunted his dreams. He'd worked as a cowhand, a horse trainer, and briefly as a deputy before finding steady work with the Diamond B Ranch. "And you?" he asked. "What brings a Boston lady to the Wyoming territory?" Olivia hesitated, then gave him the partial truth. "A desire for independence. My parents passed within months of each other, leaving me with modest means but few prospects in Boston society." "Few prospects? A beautiful, educated woman like yourself?" Caleb looked genuinely puzzled. Olivia carefully arranged her napkin in her lap. "Boston has particular expectations for its women. I couldn't meet them." Something in her tone must have warned him not to press further, for Caleb skillfully changed the subject. Their conversation flowed easily after that, discussing books they'd read, sharing opinions on the territorial governor's policies, debating the merits of different horse breeds. As the weeks passed, Caleb became a regular visitor at Olivia's homestead. He helped mend her fences, fixed the leaking roof before winter set in, and brought fresh game when his hunting was successful. For her part, Olivia found herself looking forward to his visits with an eagerness that both thrilled and frightened her. On a crisp October afternoon, they rode together to a high meadow overlooking the valley. Autumn had painted the landscape in fiery hues of red and gold, and a comfortable silence settled between them as they dismounted to rest the horses. "I've never seen anything so beautiful," Olivia murmured, gazing across the sweeping vista. "I have," Caleb replied softly, his eyes fixed on her face. Heat rose in Olivia's cheeks at his frank admiration. "You shouldn't say such things." "Why not? It's the truth." He took her hand gently. "Olivia, these past months have been the happiest I can remember. When I'm with you, I feel whole again." Olivia's heart thundered in her chest, joy and fear battling within her. "Caleb, there are things about me you don't know." "Then tell me," he said simply. "Whatever it is, we'll face it together." The words caught in her throat as tears welled in her eyes. How could she tell him? How could she not? If what was growing between them was real, he deserved the truth. "I can never give you children," she whispered, her voice breaking. "The doctor in Cheyenne confirmed it 3 years ago. There was an illness when I was younger. It left me barren." She pulled her hand away, unable to bear the disappointment she was certain would cross his face. "In Boston, my fiancé left me when he learned of it. I don't blame him. What man wants a wife who cannot fulfill her primary purpose? Caleb was silent for a long moment, and Olivia steeled herself for his retreat. Instead, he gently tilted her chin up, forcing her to meet his gaze. Is that what you think a wife's primary purpose is? To breed like livestock? There was no mockery in his tone, only a quiet intensity. Olivia, I've buried enough friends to know that life offers no guarantees. The love between two people, that's what matters. That's what builds a home. Fresh tears spilled down Olivia's cheeks. But you should have children. You would be a wonderful father. There are many children in this world already born who need loving parents, Caleb replied. If God means for us to be parents someday, He'll show us the way. For the first time since receiving the doctor's devastating news, Olivia felt a flicker of hope. Caleb brushed away her tears with his thumb, then slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wished, he leaned forward and pressed his lips to hers. The kiss was gentle, reverent, a promise rather than a demand. When they parted, Olivia felt dizzy with emotion. Are you certain? She whispered. Truly certain? I've never been more certain of anything in my life, Caleb replied. He took her hands in his. Marry me, Olivia. Let me love you for the rest of our days. 2 months later, on a clear December morning with snow blanketing the ground, Olivia Wilson became Olivia Morgan in a simple ceremony at the White River Church. They moved into her homestead, which Caleb immediately began expanding, adding 2 rooms and reinforcing the structure against the harsh Wyoming winters. Life as Mrs. Morgan brought Olivia a contentment she'd never dared hope for. Caleb proved to be a devoted husband, tender in his affections and steadfast in his support. Together they worked the land, raising cattle and growing crops that thrived under their joint care. Yet despite her happiness, Olivia still felt the ache of emptiness when she saw other women with their children. She tried to hide it from Caleb, but he knew her heart too well. Perhaps we could take in an orphan, he suggested one evening as they sat before the fire. The mission school in Cheyenne often has children needing homes. Olivia nodded, hope and fear mingling in her breast. Do you think they would give a child to us? We're not wealthy. We have love and a stable home. That counts for more than money. Their plans were interrupted by the harshest winter Wyoming had seen in decades. Blizzards raged for weeks, cutting off travel to neighboring ranches, let alone to Cheyenne. When spring finally arrived, they learned that an outbreak of influenza had claimed many lives, including several at the mission school. The timing wasn't right, Caleb said, holding Olivia as she wept for children she'd never met. When God means for us to be parents, He'll make the way clear. Summer brought its own challenges. Drought threatened their crops, and a mountain lion killed 3 of their calves before Caleb managed to hunt it down. Olivia worked alongside her husband from dawn till dusk, too exhausted most nights to dwell on the empty cradle in the corner of their bedroom. It was late August when the incident occurred that would change their lives forever. Caleb had ridden to a neighboring ranch to help with a difficult calving, leaving Olivia to tend to their homestead. As she was gathering eggs from the henhouse, she heard an unfamiliar sound, a weak cry that didn't belong to any animal she recognized. Following the sound, Olivia discovered a small bundle at the edge of their property, partially hidden beneath a juniper bush. Her heart stopped when she pulled back the ragged blanket to reveal a tiny infant, no more than a few weeks old, its copper-colored skin feverish to the touch. Dear God, she whispered, quickly gathering the baby into her arms. The child was obviously Native American, likely Apache based on the distinctive design of the blanket. What was it doing here, miles from the nearest reservation? The baby whimpered weakly, its eyes glazed with fever. Without hesitation, Olivia carried the infant into the house and set about caring for it. She bathed the tiny body in cool water to bring down the fever, then wrapped it in clean linens. The baby, a girl, she discovered, accepted a few drops of milk from a clean cloth, but was clearly too weak to nurse properly. Through the night, Olivia kept vigil, alternating between cooling the baby's fever and trying to coax a few more drops of nourishment into her. By morning, the infant's fever had broken, but she remained alarmingly listless. When Caleb returned mid-morning, he found his wife cradling the baby, singing softly as she rocked in the chair he'd made her as a wedding present. Olivia, he questioned, taking in the scene with widening eyes. Quickly, She explained how she'd found the infant, her voice breaking as she described the baby's precarious condition. "She's so small, Caleb. Too small to have been left alone. Someone must have been desperate to abandon her." Caleb knelt beside the chair, gently brushing a finger over the baby's smooth cheek. Apache, by the look of her. There were rumors of a raid on a small band traveling north of the reservation. Army troops pursued them. His jaw tightened. Some say there was unnecessary force used. Olivia clutched the baby closer. "She needs a doctor." "I'll ride to town. Fetch Doc Wallace," Caleb said, already moving toward the door. "Keep her warm and try to get her to take more milk." The hours Caleb was gone stretched endlessly. The baby drifted in and out of sleep, occasionally making small mewling sounds that tore at Olivia's heart. By the time hoofbeats announced Caleb's return with the doctor, Olivia had made her decision. This child would not leave her arms unless forced. Doc Wallace, a gruff man in his 60s who'd served as an army surgeon before settling in White River, examined the infant with gentle efficiency. "Dehydrated and malnourished," he pronounced. "But no disease that I can detect. Someone tried to care for her. These wrappings around her cord were done properly." He straightened with a groan as his old knees protested. "She needs consistent feeding, warmth, and care. If she makes it through the next few days, her chances are good. We'll give her that care," Olivia said firmly, looking to Caleb for confirmation. Her husband nodded. "Of course we will." The doctor raised a bushy eyebrow. "You understand this is likely an Apache child? There could be complications." "What kind of complications?" Caleb asked. "Legal ones, for starters. The Army might claim custody if they learn of her existence. And social ones. Not everyone in these parts is kindly disposed toward the native tribes." "She's an innocent baby," Olivia said fiercely. "We'll deal with whatever comes." Doc Wallace studied them for a long moment, then nodded. "I'll show you how to make a formula that will be gentle on her stomach. And I know a Cheyenne woman in town who might be willing to serve as wet nurse until the little one is stronger." Over the next weeks, the baby they called Sarah, after Olivia's mother, thrived under their care. The Cheyenne woman, Mrs. Blackfoot, came to their homestead daily to nurse Sarah and teach Olivia traditional ways of caring for infants. Though initially distant, she warmed to the couple when she saw their genuine devotion to the child. "You have good hearts," she told them one afternoon as she prepared to leave. "The Great Spirit sees this." Word spread through the community about the Morgans and their native child. Reactions were mixed. Some neighbors brought small gifts and offers of help, while others kept their distance, muttering disapproval. Caleb and Olivia paid little heed to the naysayers, too entranced by Sarah's developing personality. Her first real smile came during her 6th week with them, and Olivia wept with joy at the sight. "She knows us," she whispered to Caleb that night as they watched the sleeping infant. "She recognizes us as her family." Caleb pulled his wife close. "She is our family now." But their happiness was threatened when a contingent of soldiers appeared at their door one October morning, led by a stern-faced lieutenant. "We've received information that you're harboring a native child, possibly taken during military action against hostiles," the officer stated without preamble. Caleb stepped protectively in front of Olivia, who held Sarah tightly against her chest. "We found an abandoned infant and have been caring for her. There was no taking involved. Nevertheless, Army policy requires that native children separated from their tribes be placed in appropriate facilities for proper Christian upbringing and education." "She's an infant," Olivia cried. "She belongs with people who love her." The lieutenant's expression remained impassive. "I have orders, madam." What followed were the most difficult weeks of Olivia and Caleb's lives. Sarah was taken to Fort Laramie, while an investigation was conducted into her origins. The Morgans made the grueling journey to the fort every few days, allowed only brief supervised visits with the increasingly distressed infant. "She doesn't understand," Olivia sobbed after one particularly heart-wrenching visit where Sarah had reached desperately for her, only to be held back by the stern matron overseeing the fort's makeshift orphanage. "She thinks we've abandoned her." Caleb, his own eyes red-rimmed from sleepless nights, held his wife tightly. "We'll get her back. I swear it." They sought legal counsel, a rarity in the territory, and found an unlikely ally in a young lawyer named Thomas Jenkins who had championed causes for the dispossessed. He helped them petition the territorial governor, arguing that with no known living relatives, the child's welfare would best be served by remaining with the couple who had saved her life and loved her as their own. Their cause gained unexpected support when Doc Wallace testified about Sarah's condition when found and the exceptional care the Morgans had provided. Mrs. Blackfoot also came forward, a significant act of courage for a Native woman addressing white authorities. "The child would have died without them," she stated simply. "The Great Spirit guided her to people with room in their hearts. This is the way it should be." Even more surprising was the letter that arrived from a Captain James Harrison, who had led the military action against the Apache band. In careful script, he detailed the circumstances of the skirmish and confirmed that no adult survivors had been found afterward. He wrote, "Having lost my own daughter to fever last winter, I cannot in good conscience separate another child from those who have opened their home and hearts. The Morgans' petition has my full support." Finally, after nearly 2 months of legal battles, the territorial governor issued his ruling. Sarah would be legally placed in the permanent custody of Caleb and Olivia Morgan, with the stipulation that she be raised with knowledge of her heritage and in accordance with Christian principles. The day they brought Sarah home, snow was falling gently across the prairie. The baby had lost weight during her time at the fort, but the moment Olivia took her into her arms, she let out a cry of recognition and clung tightly to her mother's neck. "She remembers us," Olivia whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Of course she does," Caleb replied, his voice thick with emotion. "We're her family." That night, after Sarah had been fed and rocked to sleep in the cradle Caleb had crafted months earlier, they stood together watching her peaceful slumber. "I never thought I could love someone so completely who didn't share my blood," Caleb murmured. Olivia leaned against his strength. "I spent so many years believing I would never be a mother, that I was somehow less of a woman because I couldn't bear a child." "You are the most complete woman I've ever known," Caleb said fiercely, "and the finest mother any child could hope for. When I found her that day, I kept thinking of what you said when I told you I couldn't have children," Olivia said softly. "That if God meant for us to be parents, he would show us the way." Caleb smiled, wrapping his arms around his wife as they continued to gaze at their sleeping daughter. "Then God gave us this one to love." Over the years that followed, the Morgans' family grew in ways they hadn't anticipated. 2 years after Sarah came to them, they took in twin boys whose parents had died in a wagon accident. The following spring, a young girl who had been abused by her stepfather found refuge with them after Caleb intervened in a public altercation. Their homestead expanded to accommodate their growing family, more rooms added to the house, a larger barn built, additional acres cultivated. Their dinner table was always full, with an extra place set for any traveler or neighbor in need of a meal. Sarah grew into a strong, confident young woman who bridged 2 worlds with grace. Mrs. Blackfoot became a regular presence in her life, teaching her the language and customs of her ancestors, while Olivia ensured she received the same education as her adoptive siblings. Caleb taught her to ride and shoot with the same expertise he imparted to the boys. On Sarah's 16th birthday, the entire community gathered to celebrate, a testament to how far attitudes had shifted over the years. Even some of the neighbors who had initially shunned them now sought Olivia's advice on child rearing or Caleb's help with livestock. As twilight settled over the gathering, Olivia found a quiet moment with her oldest daughter. Sarah had grown tall and striking, with features that reflected her Apache heritage and a quiet dignity beyond her years. "Are you happy, my darling?" Olivia asked, smoothing a strand of Sarah's glossy black hair. Sarah's smile was luminous. "How could I not be? I have the best family anyone could wish for. Sometimes I wonder what your birth mother would think if she could see you now." Sarah considered this. "Mrs. Blackfoot says that in the Apache way, when a child is adopted, they truly belong to their new family. But they carry the spirit of those who came before." She took her mother's hand. "I think she would be grateful that I found you and father." Caleb joined them, gray now streaking his chestnut hair, the lines around his eyes deepened by years of Wyoming sun and wind. "What are my favorite women conspiring about?" "The workings of fate," Olivia replied, leaning into his embrace. Later that night, after their guests had departed and the younger children were asleep, Caleb and Olivia sat on their porch swing, watching the stars emerge in the vast Wyoming sky. Did you ever imagine our life would turn out this way? Olivia asked, her head resting on his shoulder. Caleb's arm tightened around her. Not in my wildest dreams. But I wouldn't change a single day of it. Olivia thought of the lonely young woman she'd been, standing on this same porch years ago, convinced her inability to bear children had condemned her to a life without love or family. How wrong she had been. Nor would I, she whispered. Not a single day. As if to underscore her words, a child's cry came from inside the house, their youngest, barely 3 months old, another child they had welcomed when his unwed mother had died in childbirth. Olivia rose, Caleb following. I'll go, he said gently. You've been on your feet all day with the celebration. Olivia smiled at her husband, the love of her life, the man who had shown her that family was built on love rather than blood. Let's go together, she suggested, taking his hand, as we've done everything else. And so they did, walking side by side into the home filled with the children God had given them to love.